And we're back for the Friday, February 11th, 2022 video sermon podcast. And the people of Denver are catching a break this week.
Gosh.
They get a little relief.
They get a little relief. They get a good sermon for a change. To my left, David Washko, who is very familiar to the folks at Denver and maybe not as familiar to the good folks at Huntersville, but David works with Steve.
He carries me.
Carries, David's a carry load, a heavy load.
David's our director of discipleship, doing an amazing job, and I'm grateful that he steps into the pulpit from time to time to bring us the word.
And as David is going to be preaching at Denver, and I'll be preaching on the same text at Huntersville, I'm just here to try to learn a little bit today so that I can pull a sermon together. David, I'm grateful for your time. Steve, as always, glad that we can be together. And the sermon passage that we're looking at today is a passage from the Gospel of Luke that sounds an awful like one from Matthew.
Sure
David, what's the parallel in the Gospel of Matthew?
Well, Luke gets to cover the Beatitudes from his perspective. And what I do like is he doesn't just talk about when Jesus talks about you're blessed, but he starts adding some woes in there, unlike Matthew.
Right.
Yeah, so the fascinating thing in the Gospel of Matthew, most of us are really familiar with that Sermon on the Mount that we call it. Jesus issues these 12 Beatitudes, blessed are you when, and so forth. Well, Luke, as we are pretty confident, Luke had Mark's Gospel as a source, probably didn't have Matthew's Gospel as a source, but certainly that tradition of Jesus speaking in such a way would have been very familiar to the people of his day. You know, this was not something out of the ordinary. This would have been a typical way of speaking, but Jesus takes some of these ideas and absolutely flips life upside down. We often think we're blessed when we're healthy, when we're happy, when our bank account's in good shape, when all of our relationships are in great shape, and yet Jesus flips them upside down. David, maybe you would even read for us from Luke's Gospel these Sermon on the Plain, as it's called in Luke.
Absolutely, and this the context really is that this Luke is talking about the ministry between the choosing of the disciples and the sending of the 12 disciples. And so it is written, he came down with them and stood on a level place with a great crowd of his disciples and a great multitude of people from all Judea, Jerusalem, and the coast of Tyre and Sidon. They had come to hear him and to be healed of their diseases, and those who were troubled with unclean spirits were cured. And all in the crowd were trying to touch him, for power came out from him and healed all of them. And I love that all is, it's emphatic. It's not just the believers. It's not just the supporters or his close family and friends. It's all of them. And goes on to say, blessed are you when people hate you and when they exclude you, revile you, and defame you on account of the Son of Man. Rejoice in that day and leap for joy, for surely your reward is great in heaven, for that is what their ancestors did to the prophets. But woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe to you who are full now, for you will be hungry. Woe to you who are laughing now, for you will mourn and weep. Woe to you when all speak well of you, for that is what their ancestors did to the false prophets.
Wow. Well, if we listen attentively to what you just read from the mouth of Jesus, it truly gives us pause for great reflection and great consternation. One thing that I wanted to talk about when David started reading, it says they came from the region of Judea, Jerusalem, and then he throws in Tyre and Sidon. Do you guys know where that is? That's Gentile territory.
Right,
That's way up north. That's enemy territory.
Yeah, that's those people.
Yeah, those people. That would be the people who, let's say if we have an enemy in the United States or an enemy, a rival team, somebody that we just really despise, those are the ones who join in with the other people.
Mm-hmm.
Quite fascinating that Luke chooses once again in this gospel that is always so inclusive. He chooses once again to include the outsiders in
Right.
this mission of Jesus.
Yeah, and as David said, it was all, right? So there's that image, and also the fact that Luke locates this on a plain. Geography matters to Luke, and so we have to pay attention when Luke mentions something as the geographical reference.
And so Matthew has a Sermon on the Mount. What does it mean to say that he was on a level area?
I think it means it's available for everybody.
Yeah.
There's no hierarchy. The idea of the Sermon on the Mount is supposed to remind us of Moses receiving the law up on Mount Sinai, and then given the law or the teaching. The Sermon on the Plain is supposed to tell us, look, Jesus doesn't differentiate between Tyre and Sidon, or Judea or Jerusalem.
Yeah.
There's no hierarchy here.
So, David, what do you make of those first, the blessings and then the woes? We really do read those. If you're happy, woe. If you're empty, good. How do we make sense of what Jesus is saying in these, really provocative statements?
Well, how I'm actually going to title this sermon is Base Your Today on Tomorrow's Realities, because I believe that's where Jesus is going. It's not your current circumstance defines your value, defines your purpose, right? I think Jesus is trying to wake them up to that message right here. And what I do like is, I've been in the world of sales for 20 plus years. The best time you can gain somebody's ear is after you've served them. Because you serve them and now there's this connection, and so they're willing to hear what you have to say. And here Jesus has cured all of these people, and he now knows I've got their ears at this point. And so he goes right into, here's what a relationship, not a religion, here's what a relationship with me looks like. And he talks about, you've got some challenging, some incredible circumstances today, but that's not where you should be focused.
One of the many fascinating aspects of Luke's gospel is this idea that it is proclamation that transforms in the Gospel of Luke. In several places, it's emphasized that the word of the Lord, Jesus spoke the word of the Lord. Here is an instance in which Jesus is speaking the word of the Lord, and if you're not in that right place spiritually, then this passage is deeply troubling. There is such a contrast between happiness, meaning a sense of contentment and the world is good, and that deep sense of joy and connection that I think you were talking about. I see these coming out, David. I look forward to, I'll listen in to what you have to say. Do any of those particular ones strike you a blessing or a woe? Anything leap out for you there?
My favorite is blessed are you who are hungry. I don't know, I did the research and I don't know if that represents food, an empty stomach, or there's a void inside of you that you're going after. But I believe, especially in today's day and time, this can resonate because too many people desire something, but they're not hungry for something. And the difference is desire, I've shared before, for 20 years I've desired a truck, but there's been no evidence of one because I have other priorities.
Yeah.
But you can see when I'm hungry for something because there's evidence that I'm hungry for it. There's action. And so I really like when Jesus is talking about blessed those of you who are hungry, because I think he's saying, I know you have a void inside of you. Let's have a relationship and let me fill that void.
So in the Gospel of Matthew, in the Beatitudes, Jesus says, blessed are the poor in spirit. Luke doesn't say poor in spirit. Luke is very clear that he says, blessed are the poor. Now, we can interpret that poverty in a lot of different ways, but I'm pretty convinced that in Luke's way of thinking, really finances and the desire for more really is the biggest obstacle to the life-giving relationship that we can find in Jesus. And therefore, when Luke says, blessed are the poor, it is almost as if he is saying, you finally got to a spot in which Jesus can really connect and really begin his work. And that is difficult as someone who is wealthy. We're all wealthy in our culture. Those are really hard for us to hear. I look forward to how you're gonna flesh that out, and how our folks who none of us would aspire to poverty. None of us would aspire to want.
Right, but I think it also has that key of you're blessed, you're lucky if you recognize you have a need.
Yeah.
It's the self-satisfied that Jesus has the hardest time reaching. It's the self-righteous that he has a hard time convincing of their need of God. So if you, in a way, saying, look, whether you know it or not, you're fortunate because you recognize you don't have everything. You know that you need something and that you need help. And, because sometimes we get to the place where we think, I don't need anything. And that's not the place that makes room for God.
Yeah, I start thinking about what I want for Christmas or my birthday or something. Literally, there is nothing left to buy for me. And I start thinking,
All right, I had already bought your birthday gift. I'll take it back.
I'll go ahead and bring it in.
Okay.
It is so good to be with you today as we gear up for Sunday. Again, David preaching at Denver. I'll be speaking at Huntersville. We are so blessed that even in the midst of the storm of COVID, we still have opportunity to be together, whether it be online, whether it be in person. Anything special going on at Denver that Sunday?
We'll have our normal Sunday, unless we get bad weather, which you never know these days. So 8:15, 9 o'clock, and 11 a.m.
Yeah, and it's a relatively normal Sunday at Huntersville. We 8:30 and 10:30. We look forward to seeing you, and maybe spend a few moments if you're watching this in anticipation of Sunday, thinking about the upside down nature of what Jesus is speaking, and the poverty that you will find in your life that, again, only Jesus could fill. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.